Oh, Happy New Year, trendsetters. I've been away for a while. Here's a quick one from Zero Hedge I saw this morning from Tyler Durden, of course. It's the perfect storm. More Americans can't afford their car payments than during the peak of the financial crisis. So everyone's referring to this financial crisis we had in 2008, but we're in it now. So it's great fun for gold and silver investors and mining stock investors. Anyway, I haven't read this, so let's go. For over a year, we've been dutifully tracking several key data sets within the auto sector to find the critical inflection point in this perhaps most leading economic indicators, which will presage not only a crushing auto loan crisis, but also signal the arrival of a full-blown recession, one which even the NBER won't be able to ignore, as the US consumers are once again tapped out. A month ago, we said that in our view that the moment was now arrived. The latest data from Fitch confirms as much. But first, for these readers who are unfamiliar with the space, read the past articles. Let's go to it. While the big picture is clear, Americans are using ever more debt to fund record new car prices. Fast forwarding to today, we have observed two ominous new developments. The latest consumer credit report from the Fed revealed a dramatic spike in the amount of new car loans, which increased by more than $2,000 in one quarter, from just over $38,000, a record, to $40,155, a new record. Now this is just inflation turning up in cars. Here it is, look at the graph. Woo! Beautiful. Up we go. Now this couldn't, so that's just the devaluation of the dollar and the increase of the debt. That's what governments are doing, it's what everyone's doing, but look out, Now this shouldn't have come as a shock. A simple reason why new car loans have hit record highs is simply because new car prices have also soared to all-time highs, as the next chart shows. New car loans versus new car CPI. Up we go, up we go. So they're talking about the consumer is strong and they're spending more than ever and all this bullshit. They're spending more than ever, but on less goods and services. So that, how you can tout rising prices as a good thing is beyond me. Here we will ignore for the time being the cause and effect or chicken or egg questions, i.e. whether record car prices are the result of easy record credit, or whether record car loans are simply tracking the explosive surge in car prices, and instead focus on something even more ominous, the explosion in the average interest rate on a new 60-month auto loan. According to Bankrate, as of the 27th of January, the number is just over 6.67%, almost doubling since the start of 2022 and the highest in 12 years. You know what, I drove past a car yard a few years ago and it said the loan was 0.5% or something, and I thought, that's a trip, it's got to be a trip. We used to pay 18% on a car when I bought a car and got a 5-year loan for it once upon a time when I was stupid enough to do that. But it was true. They were offering such incredibly low interest rate on cars why wouldn't you get a loan for it? It was just cheap money, it was so cheap. It is this surge in nominal auto debt, as well as the unprecedented spike in new auto loan rates, that we believe has finally pushed the US car sector into the infamous wild coyote point of no return. But first, let's back up a bit. Recall on Friday, the American Express reported blowout earnings and forecasted revenue and earnings for 2023 will surge well above what analysts estimate after the company saw consumer spending on its cards soar to a record in the final 3 months of the year, a time when the US economy was rapidly sliding into contraction. This is hardly a shock, targeting mostly the wealthiest tier of US society. The future is bright for Amex and its customers who, let's face it, are not seeing a huge hit to their standard of living as a result of soaring prices and interest rates. It is everyone else that is getting hit hard, and it is everyone else that is using cards like Capital One and Discover, which would target FICO score about 40 to 60 lower than Amex. And readers will recall that it was Discover which 2 weeks ago reported that its projected charge-off rate for 2023 would be more than double from its current 1.82% to as much as 3.9%. The news hit the stock like a lead balloon and sparked renewed fears that the bottom of the middle classes were already in recession. Then again, for those keeping a tab on the latest development in the US car market, where the bulk of the consumers Discover, not Amex, that's not exactly a shock. Consider the following. As first we reported a month ago, a soaring number of consumers are falling behind on their car payments, a trend which will only accelerate, in a sign of the strain soaring car prices and prolonged inflation are having on household budget. Citing an NBC report, we reported that whereas repossessions tumbled at the start of the government shutdown, when the Americans got a boost from stimulus checks and lenders are more willing to accommodate those behind on their payments, in recent months the number of people behind on their car payments has been approaching government shutdown levels. And for the lowest income consumers, the rate of the loan defaults is now exceeding where it was in 2019, according to a recent report from Fitch. Fast forward to today, when a newer report from Fitch has laid out an even more startling milestone. More Americans are falling behind on their car payments than during the financial crisis. As Bloomberg first observed after skimming the Fitch note, in December the percentage of subprime auto borrowers who were at least 60 days late on their bills rose up to 5.67%, up from a 7-year low of 2.58% in April 2021. That compares to 5.04% in January 2009, the peak of the Great Recession, and just a few weeks before the Federal Reserve was about to start quantitative easing 1. The result, Bloomberg reports, extending on our observation from December, is that the number of car repossessions is soaring. Take the case of 21-year-old Kobe Hatch, who walked outside his Chicago home in December and couldn't find his 2013 Dodge Journey. He immediately knew it had been repossessed for a simple reason: he hadn't made the car payment for months. Without a car, Kobe couldn't do his job as a delivery driver for Amazon and got fired. Now he's struggling to make his rent payments and can't afford groceries, even with food stamps. It's been very stressful, and on it goes. That is a growing cohort of Americans facing auto repossessions, an ominous sign for the economy. As we first explained in December, during the government shutdown, a surge in used car prices forced buyers to take out bigger loans for their vehicles. The monthly payments seemed doable in an era of stimulus checks, a tight labour market and surging stocks. But that's changed for many people as inflation eats into their budgets and job market cools. And on it goes, on it goes. So I'll just read it, see if there's a little bit more. They were talking about the amount of, they can't get enough repossessors. There's so many people out there getting their cars repossessed, they don't have enough repossessor guys. So if you're in the market, if you're looking for a job, go and become one of those repossessor guys. Yeah, as for the repo men, now that one is industry will be booming all throughout the coming recession. So there you go. Here's a growth industry. These repossessions are occurring on people who could afford that $500 to $600 a month payment 2 years ago, but now everything else in their life is more expensive. That's where we're starting to see the repossessions happen, because it's just everything else is starting to pin you down. And I've said this before, the Reserve Bank of Australia hasn't got interest rates high enough to kill the inflation. So you might have relatively low payments, but the price of bread and food and fuel and everything else is going up, which will get you anyway. Indeed, for those in the repossession business, it's been almost impossible to keep up with the surge in new business. Jeremy Cross, the president of International Recovery Systems in Pennsylvania, said he can't find enough repo men to meet the demand or space to hold all the cars his company is tasked with repossessing. With the holidays approaching, he's been particularly busy as people prioritise spending elsewhere, and he's expecting business to keep up through to 2024. So there's a bit of growth business. There's some good news. Right now, it's really the perfect storm, said Cross. Over the last 2 years, vehicle prices were inflated because there was no new car supply. People were still buying like crazy because they had a lot of stay-at-home cash. They had inflated credit scores, and it was like a recipe for disaster. So watch this space, guys. Coming to a country near you, including Australia. House repossessions, car repossessions, and credit card defaults. And this is the recession that we have to have. Paul Keating will be cheering on the sidelines, I'm sure. See you on the next one, guys.